Hi guys, so I'm just gonna try to make this video pretty quick, I guess. Um, no promises though. So this video is just me talking about half-price books clearance sales. Now, I actually live in an area, I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and in this area in particular, I don't know about other states or anything, but in this particular area, we kind of have the most locations of half-price books, because I think it did start in Texas, but don't quote me on that. But we do have a lot of half-price locations, and every single year, or twice a year, they have a huge clearance sale. They have one in Arlington, and then they have one in Dallas. One in Arlington always takes place in the spring, and then the one in Dallas tends to take place in the fall, I think. Or it's the other way around. I can't remember. But they always have those biannually. And if you've ever been to one of these sales before, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But if you're not, but you've wanted to go, and especially if you do live in this area, well, here's some tips for you. I've been to the sale quite a few times. I honestly can't remember. I mean, I guess if I thought really hard about it, I could. I'm sorry, my nose is really itchy today. I've been by myself, I think, a couple of times, and then I've gone with a friend a few times. So yeah, but it's, for those of you who don't know, but who have wanted to go to one of these sales, it's literally, they rent out a huge, not really warehouse, they tend to rent out a huge convention hall. It's like in Arlington, they rent out the Arlington Convention Center, and then in Dallas, they rent out the Dallas Market Hall, which is, I think, right next to the Dallas World Trade Center. Or it's, like, technically connected to it. I don't know. But anyway, and they rent out this huge convention center, and it's literally tables and tables and tables and tables of books. Nothing but books. And of course they do have CDs, vinyl, movies, and they do have like some areas off to the side that have like comic books, graphic novels, and they'll even have like a even smaller area that has like the stationery that was never sold in stores. Like, they have cards. It's like greeting cards, blank cards, and even like some of the like little things or items that, like, toy kind of items that, or that were never sold in stores. Like, sometimes they'll even have like little action figures or something like that they sold in stores but they couldn't sell. And they also have video games, of course, but for the most part it is books. And so anyway, for those of you who have not gone, these are a few tips for going. So a lot of people I've noticed that go to these half-price clearance sales, there are a few people that I've noticed, they'll come in with like these huge binders, and it's like a list of like these different books and stuff, and usually those books are like really popular books. Like, most of the people that I've seen go, they have like a huge list, and sometimes they'll, like, these kinds of people may actually even ask you well, they may not ask you, but like, I remember one time I was at a clearance sale and I was looking through some books, and this one lady was kind of off to the side looking here, and she was like, "Hey, have you seen this particular book?" And I think she was like looking for all the books in like the Gossip Girl series or something like that. And I was like, I think, and then I was like, "I think so," or something like that. And I actually found it and I handed it to her. And so, like, usually people who, they have like a list of books that they're trying to find. And I think it's like they buy them and then they like resell them either to other half prices, or they'll sell them online for a higher price. Because another thing about these sales is everything is $2 and under. Usually, like, the hardcover books are $2. Those are the most expensive ones. And then, like, the paperbacks are usually $1 or something like that. And then, of course, like, the mass market paperbacks, you know, those are the ones that are, like, 50 cents. And those are usually a pretty good deal. So, yeah, there are people who go to these sales particularly just to get, like, really popular book series and then, like, resell them online or sell them to other half prices, you know, something like that. And, you know, that's cool. Usually whenever I go to these sales, I know that there's going to be, like, you know, obviously so many more books than you could find at an actual half price store. And there's always the chance that you find, like, especially if you have a list of books that you've been looking for and you're really hoping to find, I would suggest definitely bring that list with you. I wouldn't suggest going with the full-on expectation that you're going to find every single thing that you're going to find on your list, because you will be disappointed. Because who knows, you may actually find pretty much almost all the books that you've had on your list to find, and you may not find one. You know, you may be missing one, and you'd be like, oh man, I really wanted this one book, and they didn't have it. And that's fine, because that's how it goes at these book sales. It's kind of like a thrift store, almost. It's like a temporary thrift store that is up there for literally one weekend, and that's it. That's why it's good to almost go all 3 of the days, if you're able to, because then they put out more books each day, and that's the best thing about it. And also getting there whenever they open. And even though it's kind of early in the morning, it's kind of best to go at the beginning. That's when all the good stuff is there. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Especially if you go at the very beginning of the weekend. It's usually Friday through Sunday. So if you go on, you know, the first day, Friday, right before they open, that's when you're going to get the good stuff. And another thing to keep in mind at these clearance sales is that, you know, you may be looking for a certain book in particular, but, you know, you kind of have to dig through several copies of other really popular books. And that's another thing. They do have everything split up pretty well. Like, they have, like, you know, they have, like, the children's books, teen and young adult books, adult books. They have, like, the Christian nonfiction, Christian fiction. And sometimes those are kind of, like, mixed in with each other, because people will just, like, take one book from another table and just kind of mix them. And then they have, you know, like, coffee and tabletop books, which those are, like, the huge books that have, like, you know, artwork in them. And then they split up, and there's, like, the movies, there's the music, there's the games. You know, it's all kind of split up like that. And of course, you know, if you're looking for, you know, a certain book in the young adults fiction and it's not really well known, there's a good chance that you're probably not going to find it, just because you're also going to be swimming through a lot of copies of other very popular young adult fiction books. And here's the main 3 series of books that you will always find at these clearance sales, and you will always find multiple copies, especially really nice copies of them, because there's just so many of them around. You will always, 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 always find the Twilight series, mostly in hardcover, or, you know, I mean, you'll find them in, like, their other editions and other covers as well, but mostly really nice hardcover editions of Twilight. You will always find those there. Always. A second series that you're always going to find at these sales is going to be the Hunger Games. All sorts of different copies, paperback, hardcover, you name it. So yeah, you will always find those 2. And of course, the third one that you're always going to find with those is the Divergent series. You're always going to find loose copies of the Divergent books. Literally. Like, I actually have a copy of the first Divergent book, and it's kind of actually crazy how I came to own it. I got it in, like, a white elephant gift, so it was either that or, like, something else lame, so I was like, I'll just keep the book, you know, I can sell it to half price. And I actually went to take it to half price to sell, with another book that I won from the same White Elephant thing. And they were like, we're really sorry, but we can't take this because we already have so many copies. You know, I mean, we'll take this other, this other book that you're selling to us, because it was actually a copy of, the other book was Wuthering Heights, I think. And they were like, lots of people are going to be getting this, for reading list and stuff like that at school, but I'm sorry, but we cannot take the Divergent. And I'm like, oh, dang. So yeah, they like always have, full stock of Divergent, always. And it's just, oh man, yeah. So those are the 3 book series that you're always going to find at a half-price book clearance sale. But, don't be afraid, because you can still find what you're looking for. There's still the big chance, there's still a chance you're going to find what you're looking for. You never know. Like, for example, let me see, I think it's up here. Here it is. I don't want to accidentally, I'd be very, very gentle. I don't want to accidentally pull anything out. There we go. Like one year, I went particularly, I think I had a few books. I had a few books on like a list that I had, and I wasn't really expecting to find them all. I mean, but I was hoping I would find them all. But I only found like a couple, I think, on the list, because it depends. Like, you may go to one clearance sale, you like if you're in this area and you go to like the Arlington one, you may not find what you're looking for. You may not even find one of the books that you're looking for. And then you go to the one in Dallas, and then it's like you find everything you're looking for. You never know, because it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, And that's another thing also about these clearance sales is you're always going to find books that you may want to read in the future. And then you just kind of buy them because they either look good or like the story sounds good. And then the next thing you know, they're all piled up on some random shelf in your room, and the pile keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you still haven't read any of the ones that you bought. I'm talking about from personal experience, okay, guys? Because I literally have that. I have a shelf that's mostly books that I've bought on impulse from these clearance sales. Weren't even on my list. Still haven't read them, but it's okay, I'll probably share what's on that shelf someday in a video. So yeah, but anyway, back to my other story though. I actually had one particular book on my list, and it was this one. It was called The Little White Horse. It's this book right here. It is by Elizabeth Gouge, and I had actually seen the movie. I don't know if, because this is kind of almost, it's not very well known. I don't think. I almost wish that I could have gotten a better copy, but this was literally, I think they had 2 of these copies. They are the exact same, except I think the one that I originally picked out like had writing in it or something, and I was like, and then I ended up finding this one a little bit further down, and it was really nice condition paperback, and I was like, you know what, I'm holding on to this. So yeah, but it's a really good story. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Little White Horse, but I had actually seen the movie based off of it. And the movie is called The Secret of Moonacre, and it's kind of one of those like family-friendly adventure fantasy films that it's almost a dime a dozen, kind of one of those movies. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's kind of one of those movies, but I don't know. I like it better than some of the other family-friendly fantasy adventure movies that I've actually seen, because it actually was pretty good. Like, they had some good actors in it. They had some good acting. I loved the costumes in it. I wouldn't say that, like, the special effects were that good, but it was still a pretty good movie. Like, who knows, I may actually do a movie review on it someday. But, I liked the movie so much, though, that I was like, you know what, I want to read the book. And the book is obviously very different from the movie. The movie was, very different. In some ways, I like the movie better, and in some ways, I like the book better. But I read the book, and I really, really loved it, and I was like, you know what, I want to get my own copy. And this was very, very hard to find, because it's just, I don't know, it's kind of one of those books that it's like, not enough people talk about it, and not enough people are reading it, you know, and they should, because it's a really good story. I like it. And yeah, it's really good. So yeah, that's kind of almost a testament to, it's kind of a testament to, like, you know, you may have, you know, there is the chance of, you know, you have a certain book on your list and you may actually find it at the clearance sale that you go to, you know? You never know, and I did, and I'm so happy I did. This is one of my very special finds at a clearance sale. And I don't really have different points. I don't have like okay, so this is the number one thing that you need to do at a sale, number 2 thing. These are just kind of different pieces of advice that I hope you're getting through my madness that is spilling out of my mouth right now. I do have a few more bits of advice, though, when it comes to going to these clearance sales. If you go with somebody, if you go with a friend, it's nice to go with a friend because, you know, you kind of have somebody to support you, you know, and, like, especially if you have to, like, run to the restroom and you're kind of afraid of, like, leaving your bag of books outside of the bathroom just in case somebody may try to go through them or something like that. You know, excuse me. You can always bring your own bag, but in recent, you know, my past couple of visits that I've, or like with my first few visits to these sales, I realized, you know what, I would rather have like a cart or something rather than a shoulder bag, because the first one that I ever went to, it was by myself, and I just had like this shoulder bag, and I had to keep, and I was also had a purse on too, so, and I had to keep switching the bag on my shoulders because my shoulders would get so sore because of the weight of the books that I was carrying. And some of the, like, and not that I had like so many books in the bag at first, it's just like, it was like, I don't know, I'm sorry. It was just like straining my shoulders just having it like that, and then I would just like switch it to try to get some relief, and it just did not work. So, yeah. And I did like that like the first 2 clearance sales that I went to, and it sucked. It really did. And so I would suggest, you know, whether you come alone or whether you come with a friend, I would always suggest going and hopefully, you know, like either bring your own little wagon thing if you have that, or in the very least try to get a cart that you can push around. I cannot emphasize how much I cannot emphasize how much you should just get a cart. It's much easier. It's so much easier. It really is. So yeah, definitely suggest a cart. And I would also suggest, you know, it is good to bring a friend who's willing to go, especially if, you know, you do need to go to the bathroom and you don't want to just like leave the cart or something just sitting in some random corner, because then somebody may either think that it's abandoned and just kind of like move it and put it away, or some people are just shameless idiots and they actually will go through your cart and get books. I mean, I've never actually had that happen to me, but I'm kind of one of those people that can get a little bit paranoid about that, and I'm just like, I don't want anybody messing with my books or touching them, you know? So it's always good to bring a friend for that, just in case. But, you know, even if you are alone, just make sure that you actually have gone to the restroom before you enter, and, you know, you never know, just, you know, take precautions like that. Also, stay hydrated. I cannot tell you how important it is to stay hydrated. And I know this sounds like such a mom thing to say, but that's okay. Sometimes it's good to be a mom. Always stay hydrated. Even if it's just bringing like a small plastic bottle of water And, you know, because there's the chance that they may not have water fountains, or it may be like you're suddenly thirsty and you're like looking through this long row of books that's on this long table and you don't want to get out of place. Because literally what happens is like, say this is like a tables, because they have tables, like they have these really long tables all throughout these halls, these convention centers, just lined with books. And usually what ends up happening is you get to a table and there's literally like rows and rows of people just like looking through them, and they kind of just go through this little cycle of like they'll move all like kind of down the line slowly, and then just go to look at the other side of the table. I hope you're getting my my little illustration right here. So it's like sometimes you could be like right in the middle and you want to get a drink and you're just like, well, I just gotta finish this one, and then you kind of almost get stuck in a loop of just, yeah. But that actually is how it can go though. As you're just like, it's just like this endless line. It's just like looking at along down the line of these long tables, and you're just like, oh, when is this ever gonna end? When is it gonna end? Oh, so yeah. I always just like having a personal bottle of water with me anyway, because, you know. And if you end up not bringing a bottle of water and you're just kind of relying on the fact that they may have water fountains, well, you know, that's good, I guess. Another tip is also chew gum. That's what my friend Jessica did whenever she went with me. You know, I could not stop drinking water, and I was like, how are you surviving this and not really going to the water fountain that often? She was kind of like opened her mouth and she was like, I'm chewing gum. I was like, okay, you do you. That's good. So yeah, that's kind of another tip thing to keep in mind. There's one more. I know there is. There's like one more. I think one thing that I learned, and I don't know, I can't remember if they do this every day, because it's a 3-day sale. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I don't know if they just do this on Friday or they do this every single day of the sale, but I do know that whenever they open to do the sale, I think it usually starts at like 9 a.m. each day or something like that. If you get there in time, like sometimes you have to get there like 30 minutes early, and you stand in line, and hopefully if you're one of the first 100 people to get into the convention center, they give you a free tote bag. And I've gotten a couple of free tote bags from just doing that. And that can also help you with carrying your books as well. Another good thing is that they usually have like 15 or so cash registers open. So they try to get people through pretty quickly, you know, so they're not waiting in line forever. And, you know, it all depends on the certain time of day or how many people come on what day. So, you know, sometimes you could go through the line pretty fast, and that's not that bad. But I remember the first sale that I went through, I think was on the first day of the sale, and it was, I can't remember how long I waited in line, but I remember the line was like, I don't even know how to describe this. I honestly do not know how to describe this, but like, say, I guess you could say that the register was like right here, the registers, I guess, and then the line kind of like wrapped this way and this way, like all around these different tables and aisles, and it was so far back. So far back. And I remember, like, I kind of was like, I don't know if I'm done yet, but, like, I saw how big the line was, and I was like, I told myself, I was like, I have to go. I have to restrain myself. Which, that's another good thing about bringing a friend, is because usually, if you're the kind of person that's just like, I want to keep looking, that's how I am. If you bring a friend with you that, you know, isn't going to look for too long. They're the type of person who's like, I'm just going to look, and, you know, or just like they're not as adventurous as you. They can like get burned out a little bit more than you can. You know, they're not as stubborn as you are. They'll usually like sit off to the side. I've actually had a couple of my friends do that, and they're just like, well, we'll just wait for her to finish. It is good to bring, like, sometimes you can feel, excuse me. Sometimes, like, at first you'll feel almost offended. You'll feel kind of restrained by that person. But it's actually a good thing to bring that person, because then they will help you. They will help pull you out and be like, okay, let's actually get in line and go home. Let us go eat. Let's get out into the world of sunlight and living. Let's just get out, okay? And so that is a good thing about bringing a friend. So this was, so back to my very first clearance sale. I pulled myself out, thank God, in order to distract myself, and because the line was very long as well. I had actually picked out a Hardy Boys book that I hadn't gotten before, and it looked like a pretty good story, and it was. I have it up here somewhere. I can't remember which one it was, but it was kind of an older one. And so I was like, you know what? Distract myself, and to, you know, just save the battery on my phone, I just cracked open the book, and I was literally on like chapter 5. I mean, it is pretty easy reading, but like still, I got through almost like 6 chapters before I was finally checked out. So I got through a fourth of the book, and it took me about like 30-40 minutes to get through a fourth of the book. So yeah, that shows you how long the line was. It took me like 40 minutes to get checked out. So yeah, it was, yeah. But then again, that was like the first day of the sale, and, you know, it was really crazy, really insane. But I finally got through it, and I survived. But, you know, that's the thing. You know, you just gotta it's trial and error. Always go with the plan. Always. I think the last thing I need to talk about is budget. That is another thing. Budget. So sometimes I like to go to sales, especially when I know that I don't have that much money, but I go anyway. I need to work on that. I really do. But anyway, but usually my friends have a better budget than I do. Or sometimes like, I'll try to give myself the highest budget I can give myself, which isn't a good idea. It isn't, but I do that because I want more and more books. Someday I just want that huge, gorgeous, giant library from Beauty and the Beast. That's what I want. Is that so hard? Is that so hard? So anyway, I think out of all my friends, every time I've taken a friend, I always had like the highest budget than either of them, which I think is kind of funny, but it was only because like I was more willing to spend more money, because I was like, yes, books is life. I want this. So I don't know. I think the highest budget that I've ever gone into a clearance sale with, I think was $50, maybe. Or I think like I brought $50 because I was also thinking, okay, we might go and get food afterwards as well. I don't know. I think like my highest budget was I think it was $30 or something like that. 25 or 30. And I was like, okay, this is good because I can get this amount of books with this amount of money and stuff like that. And I always kind of figured, oh, maybe I might, you know, not get as many books as I'm not going to get that many books. I was wrong. I was so very wrong. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of want to hopefully someday maybe achieve the greatness of my friend Jessica. Because the last clearance sale that we went to, I think was last fall, I went with like a budget of $20 or something like that, 20 or 25, and she went with a budget of getting, well, it wasn't an actual budget, it was more like she was just willing, she's like, 2 books is my limit. So sometimes you can either do a budget of like however much money you're willing to spend, or you can do you can put a limit on yourself. Like, oh, I'm only going to get this many books. She just put a limit on herself and was like, 2 books. At most, $4. At the least amount, like $1 or $2. Because, like, obviously the most anything is at the sale is, you know, $2 each. So she was willing to get just 2 books. And I was like, I don't know how she's going to pull that off, you know? And one of the good things about these sales, especially if you have a basket, which I always suggest, not just a handheld basket, an actual push cart, you know, back to the cart thing. Trust me, get a cart. You're going to need it. You know, because you can also put your water bottle and your purse in it, so that way your purse isn't, you know, like, kind of weighing you down. You know, it's nice to have everything in your cart and to carry it for you. So, so yeah, the best thing about these sales is you may have a limit to a certain amount of books, or you may have, you know, a budget, but the best thing about these sales is, like, whenever you're done, you know, you can just, like, you see a book that you like, or see a book that you may want to get, and the best thing is you can just put it in your cart and look at it later. You know, you don't have to make, you know, a split-second decision. You can just, like, look at it and you're like, okay, I kind of like the sound of this story. This story looks pretty interesting, or I kind of like this cover, but you just want to keep on looking. Just throw it in your cart and come back to it later. That's the best thing. Like, whenever you and your friend decide, okay, it's time to go, or I think I'm almost ready to check out, the best thing about this, so many people do it at these sales, is they always kind of just, like, go off to the side, you know, go to the back wall or something, sit down, you know, take a breather, because trust me, you're going to be on your feet the whole time. Just kind of sit down, take a load off, take a drink, and then just pull all your books out of your cart, or, you know, just kind of stand over your cart and just look through each one of your books and decide, do I really want this? And that's the best thing about having a cell phone as well, and access to the internet, is you can do some more research on the book if you want. For me personally, you know, I like to look at the reviews, like, not necessarily like reviews of like, oh, this book was amazing, or this book is trash, you know. I actually like looking to see if, you know, because I don't know, I kind of put some certain standards on myself for, like, what I like to read. I don't like to read, you know, books with, like, a lot of, like, sexual content or something like that. You know, I don't know, I just want good stuff. You know, I want wholesome storytelling, you know, going into my mind, you know, or something like that. Or I'm just like, do I really want to read this, you know, or is it really going to be beneficial to me, or, you know, something like that. I don't know. And that's why I always like looking up something about a book, so that way I'm like, okay, now I kind of know what this is about, and does it really sound like something that I want to read personally, you know? And so that's what I kind of do, is I do an evaluation of all the books that I have. I pick out the ones that I actually do want, that I'm actually good with buying in the long haul, and I set those aside and I separate them. I separate the sheep from the goats, essentially. And yeah, and that's usually how I decide. And once you make your final decision, you know, you put the books that you don't want aside. You can, you know, either try to find, you know, put them back on the table where you found them, or, you know, just try to, you know, like, put them back on, like, one of the tables, you know. I mean, it doesn't have to be in the exact place, but, like, you know, if you have, like, a bunch of, like, fantasy books that you're like, I'm not really sure about these, just put them on, like, the teen, young adult fiction table, where they, you know, just put them back on the table. It kind of helps out the workers as well, you know, because those employees, they're there longer than you are, you know, they're there all day, and they're there from early, like, way earlier than you are, setting everything up. So it really helps them a lot if you do that. So, yeah, and then after that, you know, you go and check out. And that's another thing, especially if you have a certain set budget, you know, that's also where it helps with the final decision of, like, do I want to get, you know, do I want to get this, or do I want to get that? You know, that can really come down to helping you with your decision. And trying to think. So yeah, at the last sale that I went to, with my best friend, she actually found these 2 books by this one author, and it was just a 2-book series. I don't know what that's called. You know, I know that like a 3-book series is called a trilogy. I don't know if like a 2-book series is called like a duo or a duet or whatever. But she found these 2 books, you know, it was the first and second in the series, and, you know, it was just those 2. And so she really liked the other books by that author, and she was like, you know what, I'm going to get these. And so she ended up sticking to her budget exactly. She got those 2, exactly 2. And then I was able to stick with my budget too, which was nice for once. And so, yeah. I hope that these tips helped. I don't know if these were actually, you know, I don't know. I hope you found some tips in these ramblings of mine. It's like a almost 40-minute video. I only intended this video to be like 10-15 minutes, but nah. I like talking. I'm sorry. So yeah, another video that I may come out with soon is, like most of the books that I usually get from clearance sales, especially, I usually, you know, because I won't often find the books that I'm looking for all the time, most of the books that I get at clearance sales are impulse buys. So those kind of are books that I don't really know much about, and I always kind of put them on my to be read shelf. Like, I'll eventually get around to reading them and stuff like that. So I'll probably do a tour of that shelf eventually and kind of show off the books that I've gotten. And I'm excited to read, but I just haven't read yet. So yeah, I'll get around to those eventually and maybe show you some of those. But for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye.